Hi, this is Tom Hart, and I'm the Vice President of Operations here at VictorOps.
And I'm Nate Grieb, Operations Specialist.
Every Tuesday at 2 Mountain, Nate and I get together and do a product demo of the VictorOps platform. So it's Tuesday, it's 2, and we are going to demo the product. Nate's going to start a screen share. Bear with us here 1 second. Okay, you should be seeing the primary web user interface of the VictorOps platform. We're going to demo the web UI today, but it should be pointed out that we have a native iOS and Android app as well that is reflective of the same look and feel that you're experiencing through the web UI. It's just easier for Nate and I to go through feature functionality on the web. So with that said, I'm going to start off on the left-hand side of the screen here, which is what we call our people pane. The design and intent of the VictorOps platform is to be a collaborative platform for IT, DevOps, Ops folks to have a single pane of glass in terms of what's going on with their infrastructure, including who's on call and who's available. So with that said, you can see Jason Hand at the top of the people pane there has the oak leaf adjacent to his name with the database team highlighted. That means Jason is currently on call for the database team. As you scroll down the list, you see Lauren and John listed there. They don't have the oak leaf adjacent to their name, but they have a vibrant green dot. And what that indicates is that individual is present and paying attention to your infrastructure. So if they're out of the office, for example, they're on their iOS app, they take a swipe through their VictorOps app to take a look at what's going on. You can tell that Lauren and John, Dan there are paying attention to what's going on in your infrastructure. Why we think that's important is if you're the individual on call, a lot of the times the incident that you field might be outside of your technical acumen, but you know someone like Lauren or Dan in your team probably has some insight on what that incident is or how to resolve it. So again, this user interface gives you full transparency on not only who's on call, but who's around and paying attention to your infrastructure to try and solve incidents faster. As we move into the main timeline, we have no shame in admitting that that look and feel is a lot like Twitter. So it's a scrolling real-time timeline of your infrastructure and the incidents that are occurring in association to your infrastructure. So you can see all of the incidents in that primary timeline, what the state they're in, if they're critical, if they've been acknowledged or resolved. As Nate is showing here, you can also drop graphs into the timeline, either static or dynamic. So that's a look at the primary timeline. I'm going to turn over to Nate to talk about the right-hand side of the screen here.
So over here are where all the incidents queue up. So you have an idea of all the outstanding incidents that are currently either in the triggered state, so still sending out pages. You see here it says currently paging, and it has the teams and users being paged for this incident. You also have a queue of acknowledged incidents. So these would be incidents that are currently being worked on and then recently resolved incidents. I'm going to use our Hubot integration to send in a test alert. And just to kind of go through the workflow. So it's going to show up here in the main timeline, and as I mentioned, also show up here on the right side. Over on the right side is where you can acknowledge it, which will stop paging and say that, hey, I am working on this. Or you could reroute, and a reroute essentially takes the incident and sends it off to a different team. So currently paging the everyone team, but if it's more suited for the database team, I can send it off that way. This can be done from the triggered state or in the acknowledged state, as you see here. Clicking in on an incident brings up the incident timeline. So this is going to have all the information specific to this incident. So if there's a lot of different incidents flowing into the main timeline, you have the option to click in on a specific one and have a timeline that's only going to have information pertinent to this incident. As you see, the reroute and all the pages, and if we were to ACK it, that would show up in the main timeline here, as well as the incident timeline on the right. The option to send an @mention, both in the main timeline here, will send a push notifications to someone's phone, so to bring them into the fight. If you do it from the incident timeline, either an @mention for a single individual or an @@ for a team, it will automatically append the incident ID number so that when you get that push notification sent to your phone, you know you're being called in to help fight. Past that, the other features over here on the right side are you can filter it by incident specific to you and incident for your team.
The other feature that's available through the web UI is maintenance mode. So Nate's highlighted that. That's a particularly handy feature for if and when you know you're going to be taking a server offline and it's going to create a lot of noise, but you don't necessarily want anybody paged. All of the alerts associated to that particular machine in that example will continue to flow into the timeline, but when you're in maintenance mode, it will not evoke paging policies. So it's kind of a nice way to handle maintenance. From here, we're going to jump into the settings tab, and this is where we handle our on-call management and calendaring. So I'm going to let Nate kind of walk through some of the core features and functionality in our scheduling.
From the main page of the schedules, you can see kind of a high-level overview of the current on-call individuals and what it looks like for the rest of the week. Scrolling over shows the different handoffs, etc., so you can see who's on call. You can switch that to a month view, and you can look ahead either a week or a month at a time. Clicking in on one of these teams will bring up the escalation policy and the settings to create the rotations themselves. An escalation policy essentially is a series of time-based steps that VictorOps will run through from the time an incident is opened until it is either acknowledged or resolved. What that means is we're going to follow these steps. As you see here, we have notify on-duty user for follow the sun rotation, defined again at the bottom here. And then after 15 minutes, if no one acknowledges that, we're going to move on to the step number 2, which is notifying individual users. The other options for steps within an escalation policy is to notify the next and previous user on a rotation, execute a policy for another team, which is helpful if you have an automatic escalation from tier 1 to a tier 2, support team that can be used here so that you don't have to do any sort of manual work. You can execute a webhook or send an email, which is great for people outside of the VictorOps application who may want to be informed about certain things but wouldn't necessarily be checking in otherwise, but maybe after an hour might want to send an email or execute a webhook to inform people. The webhook also has a significant enough payload where you may be able to take action on an incident based on the information that is sent through prior to following through with some other steps. So that would be another option there as well. When you are notified, so the on-duty user, you set up your own personal paging policy, so I'll jump over there now. So each individual user can set up how they would like to be notified when they are being notified for an incident. It's very similar to the escalation policy in that it's a series of time-based steps. As you see, you have immediate step, and then until you acknowledge it, it's going to continue to run through these automatically. So after anywhere from 1 minute to an hour, you can send a push notification, send an email, send an SMS, or make a phone call. All these are equally as reliable. We do suggest that you have more than one just in case something with your phone doesn't wake you up. The phone call is always a good option for that as well. Moving on to integrations.
So on the right-hand side of the screen here on integrations, you can see a list of some of the monitoring solutions that we have formal integrations with. We also have taken some time in the knowledge base, which you can see in the lower right-hand corner here. There's copious information in the knowledge base in terms of the integrations that we have available, documentation on how to walk through setting up these various integrations. As you probably know, there's a myriad of different monitoring solutions out there, so we're constantly working on introducing new integrations. So if you don't see one of the applications that you're using for monitoring, please feel free to get a hold of us at support@victorops.com. we'd be happy to let you know if it's on the roadmap or be able to assist you. Most monitoring solutions, we can either use the REST endpoint or the email endpoint to integrate with monitoring solutions.
Yeah, expanding a little bit more on that, the REST endpoint is essentially just a JSON blurb you send our way that hits this endpoint here, which is a URL that contains a API key specific to your organization, and then a routing key, which defines the team you want the alert to be sent to. The routing key is just a simple string. It is defined at the bottom of this integrations page here under incident routing. So VictorOps will go to follow the sun, DevOps to DevOps, etc., etc. This is definitely the cleanest and easiest integration to set up, assuming you have the ability to define the payload of the webhook. If you are unable to do so, we also have the option of the email endpoint. It's very similar in that there's an API key specific to your organization, and then a routing key, again, defined at the bottom of this page. And what we do with the subject and all we are able to consume is the subject and body. So we parse the subject of that email and look for key terms such as critical, acknowledged, resolved, and then we act upon them in that way. So if you were to say a certain entity is critical, we would create a critical entity. If you were to say that same certain entity is resolved, we would resolve that automatically. If we are unable to parse the subject line that you send our way, you have the option to toggle between having that alert come in as an informational message or a critical message, which will alert every time.
Emphasizing again, if you need assistance with your integrations or your on-call schedules and rotations, we're always available to assist. Just reach out to us at support@victorops.com. So from here, we're going to jump into our reporting module. As you can see, we have a number of key performance indicator reports available, hopefully fairly self-explanatory by their titles. We are working on introducing more granular reports that will get you down to key performance indicators at the team and individual level. So those are coming out in the weeks ahead. So for now, we can take a quick look at our incident frequency report. This is one that some of our customers find particularly handy in terms of fine-tuning their monitoring solutions. So it's a quick glance at the entity IDs and who's creating, or which entity IDs are creating the most noise, if you will. So you can take this report, use it to either fine-tune your monitoring so you're not sending out alerts for just noise, or you can identify the fact that you might have a particular software or hardware problem. So from here, we're going to jump into another report that's our post-mortem or retrospective report. Having supported service level agreements for the past 15 plus years, there's obviously a time and a place when a retrospective or post-mortem report is necessary. So we took the time to create this rather handy post-mortem report that Nate's going through an example of right now. It allows you a very efficient means by which to look at a date and time, an example associated to an outage if you had one, and pull back all of the information relevant to that timestamp, date and timestamp, excuse me. As Nate is going through here, you can remove things that are irrelevant to the postmortem and then add notes to particular timestamps within the report. You can save this. It's available in your VictorOps instance, and you can also save it and send it out as a PDF. So fairly handy report that a lot of our customers really like to use. So we're going to head back to the main timeline, and we'll stop screen sharing here in just a second. Oh, there's the sun here in Boulder, Colorado. So we hope that was a helpful demonstration of our VictorOps platform. Again, we're always available through support@victorops.com. Please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to help you out or walk you through a personalized demo as well. Thanks very much for your time today.